Hello and welcome back to the Living with Lost podcast. Today I'm joined by Avery Peterson. Did I get that right? I know
Yes.
you just told me and it's just gone out of my head. I don't know how that happens, but thank you for joining me today. Chats like this are obviously very important, and it'd be nice to hear your perspective and just like discuss obviously about this topic. So, so who is it that we'll be discussing today, and just share a bit of their story?
Right. So I lost my brother almost 2 years ago now, and I lost him to an overdose. And it was my older brother, and I definitely wanted to come on here to talk about that because I feel like sibling grief. I think it's kind of funny that it has a name, but sibling grief is like known to be something that lots of people don't really talk about, and something that is not really felt or like acknowledged. Um, And so, especially as a younger sibling, it's hard to kind of carry that because obviously having an older sibling pass away and then like growing older than them is very, very hard. And obviously, like a lot of the care and a lot of the support goes to your parents. Um, that's like why I wanted to hop on here and talk about it because I feel like that's not necessarily something that people feel very welcomed and feel very like alone in.
I mean, you raised so many points there. Um, I mean, first of all, I do want to ask, what was your relationship like with your brother? How, like, did you have a strong relationship, sort of thing?
Yeah, I mean, my older brother was honestly, we had a very, very good relationship. I would say that he was my best friend, and that's like very cliche to say, but I would definitely say that he was probably the person that I spent most time with, and the person I care the most about. I'm not very close with my parents, and he wasn't very close with my parents, so like our family was like mostly us together. Um, so definitely very, very hard because of that. Um, because I would obviously go to him to talk and he would go to me to talk a lot. Um, so now that it's just me with like these parents that I feel kind of like very emotionally distant with, definitely hard. But yeah, he was a very, very close friend and then also an older brother that I was very close with.
And do you remember much? Because something I found is, I'm remembering much around the time that mum passed. I mean, I lost my mum, and I am kind of forgetting a lot. Not forgetting, but it's like my brain sort of has in a way shielded me from a lot of those thoughts and emotions. Do you find that you can remember sort of like early on in your grief and when the loss first happened, or is that like something that?
Right. Um, Honestly, yes, I can. I don't think that I would necessarily say that like I dissociated out of that. My grief was also like my like path was very different because I was also abroad at the time. So I was like very like distant, like alone as well. I was very, very far away from like everyone I knew and then also my family. So that distance, and then I like went back abroad to finish out my semester and to like be distant purposely after. That definitely played into my grief and like changed it as well. So basically, I just was able to like it's very memorable because I feel as though it was pretty different than like the experience would have been normally.
Um, how old were you? Were you yeah, when this happened?
20 or 21.
Okay. And you said so you went back to like school or university or college sort of thing?
Yeah, so I was abroad in Argentina and I had been there for a month.
Yeah.
And then my brother had passed away, and I went home for 2 weeks and decided to go back to Argentina to finish out my semester.
Yeah. I mean, I completely understand that because I, well, obviously it's very different. You were in a different country, but I had a similar, I don't know if it was a mentality, but I came home when mum passed,
Hmm.
and I was at home for a little bit. There was the funeral, there was a shiva, which um, is some
Right.
Jewish thing that you don't. But yeah, and then my immediate reaction, well, I wouldn't say reaction, but there was a driving force for me to like head back to uni. Like I don't know why that was. I felt being at home and being so, around all these I just felt like the emotions and it was like an emotional overload. Like I kind of had to separate myself from that sort of thing.
I mean, it makes perfect sense, and this was why I decided to go back as well. Um, it's just hard to kind of get out of what you were out of your schedule. And you kind of almost like crawl back into that and kind of crave that because that normalization and that normativity of your life is something that you crave when everything else is like going chaotic.
Yeah.
And then also like having just that like intense school pressure and like being back like in your dorm or however you're living at school, like being away from home, that distance, like home for me now when I go to Princeton, which is where I grew up, is very, very, very hard and like continues to be. And I think will always be very hard. Just I needed to get away from like everything I knew and like everything that like I associated with my brother and like my family and like my like happy memories just because it was hard to be there like when it was like very, very fresh. And so going back to like my norm and also going back to a place where like not everyone knew.
Yeah.
It's like very hard to constantly be having like big conversations about it because like
Yeah.
every time you see like a different friend, they want to talk about it, but like they don't really think that like every time you've seen a different friend, they've also wanted to talk about it. So then
Yeah.
every time you, like hung out with whoever, like you've been talking about it all the time. So going back and like getting into your schedule is like something that like needs to happen because what else are you to do? Like sit around in your bed and like feel bad for
Yeah.
yourself. That's just not going to help.
Yeah. I think, well, first of all, like it's I think when, you do lose someone, your immediate people who are in your not immediate friendship group, but who are close around you and who have experienced that loss, it's like it can be quite overwhelming when, yes, I understand, people are, reaching out and, they're trying to, you know, they're trying to, be there for me, but it like you said, it is so overwhelming from the sense that you kind of want to move forward with your life and just continue and act, a sense of normalization. But what I found was that sense of normalization, my life has, drastically changed, and the sense of normalization that I was looking for has completely altered. And um, it sometimes, it's weird though, because grief just affects you in so many ways, and like some days, I do need that, I do need that comfort, and then other days I'm fine being independent, and I want to displace myself from these emotions. Like it's crazy how impactful grief really is, sort of thing.
Right, for sure. I mean, definitely each person deals with it and bears their weight their own way. But like for me, that was what I needed. I like very
Yeah.
quickly needed to return like straight away to normalcy before like I fell apart essentially. And then like also it was comforting for me to deal with it myself with people that didn't necessarily know what was going on because I like I said I was abroad, like I was with a completely different and new set of people on like a very small campus that like had no
Yeah.
clue what was going on.
And is that something, if that was brought up, the loss, I mean, is that something you would bring up, or did you just generally try and, you know, well, continue with life really?
I mean, like of course I wouldn't hide it and like of
Yeah.
course I wouldn't like be not willing to speak about it. But I wouldn't go out of my way to like announce it. And it's definitely something that I feel as though the more you talk about your loss, the more comfortable it is and like the healthier it becomes. So I feel like as if there's space to talk about it, like I never want to bring it up,
Yeah.
but if there's space to talk about it, I feel like it's a good. Feel as though you should be talking about it.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I do wanna ask you a bit about the very nature of your brother's loss. I mean, I didn't ask, what was his name?
Jeremy.
Jeremy. And well, because, one of the things that when we first started talking, it was the idea that my mum obviously passed of cancer, and that was something I over time it was something that was so present in my life that I was so used to mum being unwell. Like the idea that one day she was going to pass was, even though she was young, it was something that was um
Right.
so
Yeah.
present in our life. So like, I don't want to say unexpected, but I guess the very nature of his loss, it was kind of unexpected in a way. Um, did you think that made things like, because I guess you didn't get to, have that closure, that sense of closure that some people get to have?
Right, right. I mean, there were definitely, I would say time there have been times where it had been so much harder for me to deal with what was going on than his passing, just because obviously when you have like a very close person that you care about dealing with addiction, like it's very, very hard. And the path through rehab and relapse and all of those things are an emotional toll for everyone involved. Um, but there were definitely times in my life where I had also felt prepared to have lost my brother.
Yeah,
Um, he had overdosed several times in the past, um, and always been okay. Um, However, at the time of his passing, yeah, it was very unexpected. Um, and it was like the best point at like how he was doing for like how he had been doing in a
yeah,
long time. So I would say that like being at that point, like seeing how happy and like how healthy he was doing, um, yeah, totally hard to deal with. And because it was so unexpected and like having that like mental preparation of like I'm going to lose this person one day, it makes it so much easier to like lose said person. But then
yeah,
like, unexpected and comes as like a complete surprise, always like of course will be so much harder. And so definitely like if I had lost him like several years before, I feel as though it might have been a lot easier for me because I was ready.
yeah. Did
And then I
did
kind of
you
like let go.
say that again? Sorry.
And then like as things got better, like I kind of let that go and like
Yeah. I did you and Jeremy, did you discuss his addiction, or was that sort of just unspoken about?
no, completely disgust. I mean, it was something
Yeah.
that he was going through. He was only 3 years older than me.
Yeah.
Um, and that he had been going through all of high school, and um, so like definitely, I guess like a several year issue. And so definitely like he'd been in and out of rehab and in and out of like outpatient programs and sober living and stuff like that. So it's definitely something that my family was accustomed to and like accustomed to talking about. And because I'm half Asian, my mom's Asian, so the culture's a little bit different to like not totally be warm about it, not totally be talking about it all the time, but like definitely within my family, of course, we talked about it, and like of course I had talked about it with my brother. I mean, definitely different for me, like as a kid, to be talking about it.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it was definitely something that we like kept doors open to.
Yeah. I think that's important, and it's definitely something I wish in my house. The mum's her what was going on was definitely, I wish it was spoken about more. I think when you are faced with trauma and there is such a difficult aspect of your life, it's very easy to ignore that and just act as if nothing is happening. And there was that there was this mentality in my family, I guess, that it was sort of unspoken about. I've mentioned it a few times, but I think I don't know if it was just like floating around the issue, or just, because the very nature of these conversations, discussing the addiction with your brother or discussing it is naturally a very, intense conversation. And I think, when, especially when mum was first ill, we were very young. So it's, I think it's very a maturity thing as well. Do you think that's like in a way that has matured you, like your mature levels have and your perception of life, or yeah, do you think that sort of matured you in a way?
I mean, completely. There's no way to say no to that answer, right? I mean,
Yeah,
you learn so much when like someone you love passes away because not only do you learn a lot of lessons about life, you learn a lot of lessons through your own coping and through your own grief. So you learn a lot of lessons about who you are, but these lessons about life as well are very important. So you learn to value those people around you, and you learn that you need to take those chances that you're not going to take, and all of those kind of cliche things that you always know,
yeah,
you never really put like importance on.
yeah,
Um, and then it actually begins to be like so important for you once you have lost someone. Um, and you start like to realize that like no one really gives a fuck. You're just being scared and you're preventing yourself from doing all of these things. And
yeah,
you've lost this person. And that's your sign. That's your sign to stop being scared and
yeah,
go run. But then also, like I said, you learn a lot of lessons through your coping with this death and through your own kind of resilience. So you are facing this internal struggle in your depression and whatever else you're going through. And like you learn a lot about yourself and you become wholly resilient.
completely. I think that's a very lovely way of putting it. I mean, it's weird though. It's like I've kind of do you find you've like developed this mentality where um I think when you lose someone, you kind of your perception of life changes from the sense that you know, not from like an existential crisis standpoint, but just because like um you really look at life for what it really is. Like, you know, I definitely feel like my whole viewpoint of um living and kind of opportunities and I think you know there was an aspect of my life where I definitely was holding myself back, and I think when something like this happens, you kind of understand that the only person who's holding yourself back is you, and like you know my you know at the end of the day my mom's not here anymore, and I think the one thing I really do take from her is how her ability, despite what she faced, her ability to really like attack life almost. And I use the term attack because I don't think you should really coast your way through life and just like, you know, let things pass you by because, you know, like I guess this is a conversation for another day and I don't really know what I'm getting onto it. But I feel like when you do experience like a loss, you kind of view life differently. Like, is that something you feel or
I mean, completely. You have this traumatic event happen to you where you lose someone that means everything or means your world, someone that's very, very close to you. Like, of course, that changes your whole entire perspective on life and your own life and how you choose to live. Just because, like, the scale has been changed. Like, there's a lot of
yeah,
on life now because you realize the importance of yours and you want to make more out of yours to make the person that you lost proud, right?
yeah, I completely understand. Um, a little bit more about your brother. What was he like? Like,
Right. Um,
if you
my
don't mind sharing, obviously.
Yeah, my brother is the reason why I am who I am today, I would say, and that's like also very cliche, but I would just say that I wouldn't have learned as much about myself as I would have without him. And he was very energetic, didn't really give a fuck about what other people were thinking of him. Um, the smartest person in the room always, which is kind of crazy because he was like definitely this like kind of stoner, like drug user kid,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
very Asperger's type where like could walk in to his SAT tests after drinking and like going out all night and get a perfect score on them.
Oh,
Took
really? That's amazing.
take advanced placement exams for classes that he didn't take and get fives on all of them. Like just like a genius without like a
Yeah,
purpose. And
yeah,
someone that like also because of this, I thought he was smarter than everyone else in like the most hilarious way. I don't know if you know anyone like that. Um, but yeah, I just like a very charming person. I think, yeah, definitely kind of like argumentative.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, lived life kind of insanely, but definitely lived.
yeah. I think that's an important way to look at it. I mean, it's it is very sad, when you lose anybody, and I think losing a sibling is that much harder because, like you said at the beginning, it is a completely different dynamic, it's a completely different loss. I mean, obviously you guys were close in age, and that probably factors into it. But like not having that person to talk to, and like something that I guess in a way benefited me was because I had my brother and sister. I was able to discuss my loss in a way. So how did you find that? Like,
I mean, definitely hard because, like I said, I definitely have maintained my relationships with my parents, and they do definitely love and care about me, and I love and care about them, and I want to support them and be there for them because they don't deserve for me to turn my back against them. However, like I also feel as though right now for me it's not the time for me to be very emotionally close to them. So it's been hard because I don't necessarily have my parents to rely on either. But that's also kind of like in a way how I roll. Like I would so like how we were talking about like fear being an internal struggle and like
yeah,
you having to face things yourself. Like depression, that is as well your own feat to face. Um, you are the only one that can make yourself feel better. You are the only one that understands how you're feeling and like how you can be better and feel better and be
yeah,
like a version of yourself and deal with what you're going through. And of course, you can have supporting players, and of course, you can have people be with you and stay by your side. But at the end of the day, like you're going to be alone because you have to be alone. And so I don't necessarily feel as though like me being alone is necessarily the worst thing because like that's how I need to go into this battle anyways. So
okay,
of course like not having a sibling to talk about it with
yeah,
hard. Also, what are you going to do?
yeah. You have a very I love your mindset. I think it's very self-reliant, from a sense, that you can you seem quite practical. Like you can you can kind of locate what's going on with your life, and you can sort of like deal with your struggles. I mean, is is presently mental health something that you struggle with, or is that something that you haven't found?
I would definitely say that I've been like I mean I'm sure like you can understand, but like I'd say since my brother's passing, like I've been very depressed and it's definitely hard to face. But this like depression that I do face, like because what you said, and I'd like to stay open with myself and be introspective, this depression that I face is just like a weight of kind of sadness that I face that is just kind of like this physical sadness that I can't necessarily get
Sorry,
rid
do you have a cat in the background?
of.
Can just hear him having a great time back there.
No, I was like wondering if you hear.
I was like, "What's that noise?" I was like, Hang on, is that my computer or something?"
I just
No, it's fine. It's fine. I was just so curious.
foster this cat. Like that's why I was like running around today. It's because I just this like woman had this huge issue and needed me to foster this kitten, but it's really really shy and it only hides behind my oven all day
Oh,
and
really?
it comes out and like meows like
Yeah,
everyone.
he was going
But like when
nuts
it
back
comes out
there.
of the oven, it just like yells. It really likes to squeak.
Yeah.
So hopefully she goes back into the oven. Honestly, I didn't necessarily deal with it that well. I would definitely say when I in high school while going through like I would say the most of my brother's addiction, like I never even thought twice about it and just kind of like powerhouse through it. And it definitely hit me at a later date. And so I knew that that was not what was to be done. And I knew that I needed to like deal with this like real time and allow myself to really feel. But also I felt as though I didn't necessarily do the best that I could do, but I did the best that I could do for myself, like tailored to what I needed to do. I basically like dropped, mm, not necessarily, but like I tried to drop as much as I could to focus on myself and like what I enjoyed doing. So like
Yeah.
fuck it, like I don't want to do that, like I'm not going to do that, like I don't feel well, like I'm going to cancel. Like I was still trying to hold myself to like not canceling a lot
Yeah.
on other people and like still trying to like go out to like bars and clubs with friends and
Yeah.
do like very social things because I knew that like that's what I on a better day or like in if my brother hadn't have passed away, like I knew that that's what I would be doing and like be
Ye
doing it with like my head up, like having fun. So like I knew that like I had to do that. I mean, I knew that like my friends wanted me to do that, and I knew that like even though I probably wouldn't have fun, like that's what I should be doing. So I like did the things that I thought that I should be doing along with the things that like I kind of just stopped the bullshit and like just tried to do as much as I could do. And some days I was just like, I'm gonna like head in the books, do a bunch of schoolwork, and then just like for the rest of the day, just like spend the day by myself. I am super like social and chatty and energetic, but also like I found with the loss of my brother that I am also an incredible introvert and like would rather stay at home by myself than do like anything else. Like I love spending copious amounts of time by myself, and I think that was like my saving grace was basically just spending time being comfortable with
yeah.
myself and doing things that like I needed to do and wanted to do, or just like doing nothing was honestly like the best way that I could handle my grief and like I could handle feeling bad. And for like a while, I was going to therapy to like humor mainly my parents, honestly, also to humor myself as like this is what I
Yeah.
should be doing. But like that honestly was just so unhelpful for me and like made me feel so bad that
Oh,
like
really?
I fired my therapist and I first have to take a break and then I was just like
See you later.
goodbye. Yeah, I just retreated.
That's quite interesting. Well, firstly, I definitely love the introverted lifestyle. I think I don't know what it is, but I do. There's something about just staying at home, watching a bit of Netflix, and just all that self care. I think
Driving, grooving, like grinding, doing your thing, just like
yeah, doing
having
your
no
thing. It's so
interruptions with like
important.
other
Do you know what I
people,
mean?
not having to socialize and like waste your energy on other
Energy.
people.
There we
It's like
go.
yes, a
Because
conservation of like your inner energy. Like save that
yeah,
for yourself on a bad day.
yeah, I totally relate to that. Like, just sometimes, like, I feel like I've never been, too like extroverted in the sense. I mean, yeah, I guess I can be, but at the same time, I just love being not love it. Like I'm not always by myself, but there's something about being, when you're just alone. I think you it's where I think best. It's where I the time that like I kind of realize that you don't always need to go out and just go wild and be complete. It's okay to have like time off and just relax and sort of like self-care, because I think self-care is like it is important, because if you don't
Mhm.
look after yourself and focus on your needs, like
I
who
think
else
yeah, the
will?
self care that's like most important when you're in grief, or I guess when you're grieving, is the self care of like taking care of yourself and doing what you need to do by spending time with yourself, and then also the self-care of like doing the shit that you have to do. Like get out of bed. Like I don't care how bad of a day it is or like how bad you feel. Like go get your shit done, do your homework, do your work, like do whatever you have to do because like that shit will build up and like then you'll have more things to face and you'll just be in a worse position at the end of the day.
Yeah, completely. So like, d what was it against? Like, what did you have against like therapy? Because obviously, I don't. Obviously, this isn't therapy, but this is like discuss. I guess like from the standpoint of like just talking about shit. I guess from one way you could sort of say this is a form of therapy. But like, what was it that you specifically against therapy that you have
I
had?
mean, yes, I agree with you completely that like this, like the conversation that we're holding and any conversation that you hold while deeply talking about like your loss and your process of grieving is going to be cathartic. And therapy definitely helped at some point, and I think definitely like the process of repeating your past um, and like going through what you felt with like new perceptions or like a new perspective now that you're older and like now can look at things in a different
Yeah,
light is definitely helpful. But for me, I just felt as though I was doing all of, and I liked my therapist a lot and thought she was great, but like I just felt as though I was doing all of the talking and that I had felt very comfortable with myself and I didn't have any questions to ask and I had like known why I was feeling this way and how I was
yeah,
feeling this way. And like you had said, like I just know myself well and like I didn't I it, like I said like it wasn't a self-loathing kind of thing. I not self-deprecating. Like I didn't
yeah,
necessarily know what to say to her once I had like repeated the story of like my past with each of my family members, with my brother, like what happened when he passed away. Like after repeating everything that had happened to me, I thought that there was just not a lot of work to be done. And every week going in and just like being picked into was really hard for me when I thought that I was doing a better job myself, kind of dealing with and supporting like my process of grief. Um,
yeah,
and so that's why I like didn't want to go anymore. I just thought that it wasn't very helpful and I thought that I could be doing a better job um, by myself. And so that's why
and here we are.
like it just made me feel sad. Like it was made me feel worse to talk about things every week. And like I know that
Yeah,
that's probably good for you to like constantly bring up these like memories, but it just made me feel bad. And also my therapist, and honestly, I don't hold this against her because I feel like many people would, but my therapist also kept like crying when I repeated my story. And I know that like many therapists would I would assume because it like was sad and like is sad and I
yeah,
was also crying. Um so like of course like having a therapist cry and
it's
over
yeah,
me and just me being like, "Is my story really that sad? Like, is it that
yeah,
hard for you to listen to what I'm saying, and do you empathize with me like that much? Like, I feel bad, then it means you feel bad,
yeah.
you know?"
I
And like
mean,
that's why I didn't necessarily like, talk about it.
I mean, I don't think I've heard anyone, go to therapy and the therapist cries. I mean, I can see how that would be incredibly off-putting. I have benefited from therapy, in the past. Um, I don't know so much. I think realistically, the only way I can observe it is because it's sort of, I don't think it's necessarily by the therapist itself. I think it's more the idea of that I'm confronting all the shit that I'm trying to avoid and being in this situation, and kind of face these thoughts and feelings. It kind of brings a new things to light. And it's definitely something I've felt from like these chats because things that I haven't even thought about or things I haven't really, that I don't think on day-to-day basis. In a conversation like this, my perspective or like I'm learning new things about myself as well. So obviously I do it, obviously I like talking about it. One, because I just like keeping my mum's memory alive. Like I like to to I don't want her to be forgotten, and the very nature of her to be forgotten. So I talk about her as much as possible. Some people are probably sick of that, and fair enough. But like, I can never get sick of talking about my mum. But like, I just what I find is like conversations in general have like they're hugely cathartic, and like it's weird because I can imagine how I guess there is somewhat of a difference though between therapy and like a conversation with a friend or a conversation with a mate who has shit internet connection. So there's obviously like
I mean, it definitely like everyone had their bit to say about it because yeah, of course, that's like me just saying that like I can do this and like I'm better than anyone else to speak about this with. Um, so of course, like my parents had like each their like bit to say about it, and like my friends are also like, why the fuck would you do that? But yeah, I completely understand that like claims or like owns up to the fact that like I think that I'm better with handling this than like anyone else. But yeah, like I'm gonna
not at
claim
all.
that. And, like I'm
I
gonna
would.
claim that proudly.
Yeah, I mean, end of the day, like, I don't think there's anything wrong with saying, if you like being able to handle grief better than others. Like, obviously, it's not a competition. Like, I'm not giving you like an Olympic medal but like,
No, I'm saying in terms of like a professional being able to like help me more than me helping myself.
yeah,
Like
yeah, of
what I'm
course,
claiming by like firing my like therapist and like saying that like therapy doesn't help me or talk therapy doesn't help me.
yeah, of
And
course,
saying that like a professional can't help me in terms of talk therapy.
of course. I mean, because I ultimately you kind of know what works for you,
Right.
and
Exactly. And that was my defense is that like it just doesn't work for me and like I know for
yeah,
myself and that's not it.
yeah. What does work for you? Because obviously it's not journaling. The journaling's a big no-no. Um,
um uh See, this is what I'm saying that like I touched on this earlier that like I wasn't the best at dealing with my grief. Honestly, I don't really do a lot of anything. I am a
yeah,
big thinker and that's it. And I just like to think about how I'm feeling and think about my brother and think about my past and like that's really it. And like I think about those things when I want to think about them and like when I don't want to think about them, I don't. But like I said, like I think it's very important to have open conversations with yourself so that you can be very open and introspective because when you are completely open and like connected to the inner version of yourself, that's like when you no longer need to have conversations about yourself because you know yourself. That's I
yeah.
guess how I'm connecting like our past conversation is
Mm,
like I felt as though I don't necessarily need to have like these cathartic conversations with people all the time. That like,
yeah, of
oh, it
course.
wasn't like I don't just need to have conversation with my mates now. Like, I just feel as though like I have myself, and like honestly, that's enough.
Yeah, I completely understand that.
I mean, a good stare at the wall is great too. You know,
Staring at the walls.
yeah.
I've not
I mean,
tried that one, to be honest.
you haven't tried it.
No, I don't. I haven't actually given that one a go.
I'm joking, but only partly.
Yeah. I stare. Do you know what? I stare at. Sometimes I look at the stars. I don't know if you've tried that one, but
I mean, it's a good, like, just dissociative, like, I need a blank space. There's nothing going through my brain. Like, my depression just feels like I'm staring at a wall. So why don't I just stare at a wall?
interesting. Yeah, I'll definitely give that one a go. Don't think I've done that before, but I can see how that can be helpful.
It's a
Um,
bad day activity. I don't know. A
do you
rainy day one, maybe.
do you find like is there certain things that like bring on like what these thoughts, or like do you find yourself thinking about it more around like Christmas or like birthdays or like
Right. I mean,
events?
yeah, completely. And I'm sure you feel this way as well. But I would definitely say, like, the last month is, like, brutal. Um, New Year's and Christmas are very, very hard. And then also my birthday's in December as well. And for me, honestly, like my birthday is the hardest to celebrate because I don't necessarily feel as though celebrating life is something that, and also celebrating my life is something that I want to do at this time. Um, and it feels like awfully selfish as well. So like that, and it's in December, and then going into Christmas, and then going into New Year's, like obviously is very hard. Um, so I definitely say that like my mental health definitely gets a lot worse during this time, and then also I have like all of January off, so I've just been trying to stay busy, so that like I don't fall into like a big hole. But
Yeah.
yeah, definitely say around the holidays, it's brutal.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, what like New Year's is shit, but I've only had like obviously this is quite a recent one, so it's like only been two or so New Year's. Two, what am I saying? Also two New Years. To be honest, last New Year, not 2019 going on 2020. I was actually in New York, so that was actually quite a nice New Year's Eve. Yeah, I was I went to yeah, so I went to it's not called Hyde Park. What's that park? You know the where the fireworks. Obviously, I've completely forgotten it. That Central Park, obviously. What am I talking about? Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
you
yeah.
missed us.
Yeah, obviously. So I went
Yeah,
there. Had,
hard.
but yeah, I feel like there was just that sadness looming that kind of made it like not difficult, but obviously clouded, the happiness that should have come from said days. And ultimately, I think going forward in life, just there will always be like a sad undertone to Christmas or
Right.
New Year's
I
Eve
mean,
or
honestly, how I feel is like to, especially on holidays, but like to any day, I kind of look at it as like day to day drudgery now. Like, I definitely just say that with depression that has come with like grief, that like now I just face every day as like kind of like a judging task. That like every day is just another day, not necessarily something that I would ever look forward to, you know?
yeah.
So of course, like on holidays, and especially like holidays where you are like meant to cherish and spend time with your family or like your closest loved ones, like that is the hardest. And also, like I said, like the celebration of life, like that hits deep.
Yeah. Slightly random, but do you like chess? Because I saw on your Instagram like 2 days ago.
I've been trying to play chess, but on my Instagram, if you look closely, I was doing really, really horribly.
Oh, really?
I
I
just had
was,
my king on the board, and that was it. I was just
oh, fine.
on the board. Yes, but I
But
love chess, and that was something that Jeremy's actually ranked number 9 in Canada, like
what?
insane at chess. Yeah,
Really? That's
yeah.
amazing.
Like as like a 10-year-old would play the guys in Washington Square, like in the park, and win.
Oh,
But
that.
I don't necessarily love chess, but I'm trying to like I'll have friends over now, and we'll like drink
Have a little
tea or like
little
have a
chess
drink
night.
and have a little chess, quarantine times.
No, did you watch the Queen's Gambit?
No, I do not want to watch a show that involves like an orphan with a drug problem go and play chess. Like that just sounds like a horrible premise.
You see, you'd say that, but it's
It's wholly boring.
if if you read like the premise on paper, it seemed yeah, it's like no, that's not going to be a good show. But I'm telling you, it's actually a banging show. Like I binged it in about I'd say a day.
And it's like my kind of like fuck society thing because I think everyone and their moms has suggested it to me.
Oh really?
Yes.
No, look, it's a good show. Give it a watch. You better give it a watch. No,
We'll see. We'll see, Joe.
but yeah, I think this has been a very wonderful chat. I've definitely enjoyed having you on. Sorry for the questionable internet connection.
No,
I'll blame my dad for that. He's got to sort that one out. But yeah, thank you again. And I do kind of like to end it on one note. If you were to, have a conversation with your brother again, and just sit down, and discuss. with him about life? Like, what would you sort of say, sort of thing?
Um, I don't know. I think honestly, I would just like to chat and to like update him on the time that has passed. I think obviously like the last several years, a lot has gone down and a lot of very like unexpected things. And I think I would just like to update him on like how I'm doing and like what I have been doing. Like I'm graduating in several months, so I have a lot of like big life.
Come on, little graduation.
So I think that's it. I would just like to have like a nice, just civil, normal conversation and like just like an ordinary chat over some chess and tea and talk about how I've been doing and what I've been up to in the past or the last 2 years.
Yeah, that's very nice. Well, again, thank you so much for coming on. And yeah, I've enjoyed this a lot.
Yeah, me too.
And
Anytime.
hopefully, if you're ever in London, just if you're up for a chess game, give me a shout.
Of course.
See you later.
All right, take care. Stay safe.
I will.
I just want you to find your truth and stick to it. I know you'll be okay. I know it. From the bottom of my heart, I know it. I love you, Baba.